And so our subject this morning is the way to immortality. The way to immortality. We are immortal. There is no question about it. Consciousness is immortal. Consciousness is immortal. There's only one consciousness, and that's God's. And as you are conscious, He is in you. That's the immortality which we must once more rediscover. We simply have to know that we are immortal. We have to prove it by causing within us a consciousness which is dynamic under every condition, which does not pass away, in which there is no break in the continuity. In waking consciousness, we are fully aware. You can be aware in your subconsciousness of sleep. That's what the Lord is doing as He dreams this universe. He's aware He is dreaming. And then you also can be aware through that subconscious state into the superconscious state, which is God's presence within us. You can be just as aware as you are now, looking at me and I looking at you. You can be more aware, because then these restrictions of waking consciousness, subconsciousness, are gone, and you are fully awake as God is. Remember, consciousness is immortal. And the way to immortality is to be able to hold this awareness which you feel right now through every condition, even into being one with God Himself, which you and I are. The duality gives us the delusion. When we rise above that duality of waking consciousness in this world, subconsciousness in dream, and awake from those dreams, in that consciousness, in that one consciousness, there is only one, that's God Himself. So our only safety, and the safety for those whom we love, and friends, and all other of God's children, is to awake in that one consciousness. That's immortality. And you can do it by following the path which our Master has left, because He was awake in God. He had broken the cosmic dream. He knew the one eternal consciousness. If we follow Him, as He attained, so can we attain. But remember, behind it all, this seemingly duality is one immortal awareness, God Himself, and He is in each one of us. He's in the flower. That's the one consciousness. And that's what we all melt into that. How can anybody be lost? How can any of your relatives be lost? How can any of the greatest sinners be lost? They cannot be lost. Eventually, they awake in the infinite awareness of God. That's the lesson. The way to immortality is to follow the path that has been left for you and for me by one who had that realization of immortality. He had made his consciousness dynamic to the one eternal, immortal consciousness of God. We have to do it, that's all. We have to realize that we are that. Realizing it, we have to merge in it. Then there'll be no separation between the seemingly distant Father and ourselves. We are one. There's only one consciousness. Although sitting here it seems that you're there and I'm here. In your dream, can't you be there and I be here? When you wake up in the morning from the dream, where is it? You realize it was your own consciousness that was dreaming. That's the way we wake up to the immortality of our true being. The soul is none other than God Himself expressing in this vehicle, which we all have. So let us realize truth is simple, but if you try to reason it by your mind's qualities, you'll be in a terrible dilemma. You cannot reason it. You can feel it through the heart. and you can feel it through the soul. So the way to immortality is to get away from reasoning too much. Of course, we have to reason in this world of existence, otherwise we're left behind. But this is not our home, our Master said. This is not your home. Your home is with God and Christ and the Masters. They're in the immortal consciousness of God. And consciousness is immortal. Therefore, they are right with us, but we cannot see them. We cannot be aware of them. Why? Because we're attached to this duality of consciousness, this outward consciousness, this worldly consciousness. We're wrapped up in it, instead of being wrapped up in God first and then view this outward consciousness as a dream. That's what we have to learn to do. And so we must prove our immortality. We must make our consciousness dynamic without a break in its continuity. Do you understand? At sleep, there's a break in your continuity. When you dream, your consciousness takes on another aspect. You're aware there, but there's no continuity in the awareness. When you wake up, and you come into that consciousness which is immortal. Now you have to wake up from this consciousness of God which has produced this dream, just like you produce your own dream, with all the trees and people. Somebody says, I hate people. What is that about peanuts? Well, anyway, it's all right. You know what I mean. Now, going on, before we get wrapped up in this peanuts business, somebody gave someone in the family a lot of these dolls, peanut dolls, and what are their names? There's who? Lioness with his blanket. And then there's that grouchy girl. What's her name? Oh, Lucy. And then there's the dog. And it's so wonderful to realize that as that thing is a dream, so this whole creation of God is a dream. But you have to wake up in it. If you got attached too much to those characters, you'd be in a mess. You'd be in trouble all the time. So we wake up from this dream, and we're not in a mess. We're in where we belong, one with God. And so, just having diversed a little bit, let us get back to this realization of immortality. How can we do it? Why can we do it? Well, we read in one of the Psalms, 82nd Psalm, the 6th verse, I have said ye are gods. All of you are children of the Most High. Every one of us is none other than God Himself. Until you realize that you can't say that. But you can say, God is in me. And the very fact you are conscious, breathing, feeling, and all those things entitles you to say that. And you can say, I am immortal. But you shouldn't say it until you've proved it, by following the techniques whereby you can live, for instance, in the breathless state. If you follow one of the techniques of self-realization fellowship, you will find that you are living without being subject to this breath. Therefore, you have proved that you have overcome one of the conditions that keeps you tied to matter. You think, if I don't breathe, I'll die. All right, meditate a little bit. Follow the techniques of the Master, and you will have the breathless state, and you'll know that's all untrue as far as immortality goes. Master used to express it this way. Think of 3 bottles, all within themselves. In the innermost bottle is salt water. Then comes the second bottle, then the third bottle. The outside covering constitutes or corresponds to this worldly vehicle. It's thrown into the ocean. You break the outer body, you have 2 bottles left. You break the outer bottle, you have 2 bottles left. The spiritual body, or the astral as it's called, and you break that, and the innermost bottle with the salt water is in it. Salt water represents the soul. You break that causal body, what happens to the water in the innermost vehicle or in the innermost bottle? It mixes with the great ocean of God. Therefore, instead of being attached to these outward vehicles, corresponding to those 3 bottles of which I have spoken, you become attached or you become anchored in the ocean, the wave of the ocean changes. The wave changes, but the ocean does not. And so as the waves resolve into the ocean, although the wave action of materiality is lost, the essence of what you are, of what I am, merges in the one ocean of spirit. And remember our Master said, the wave must return to the ocean. The wave must return to the ocean. Doesn't every wave in this ocean we see return to the bosom of the ocean? So every one of us must return to God. Why not start now? That's the secret of immortality, is to realize that you are not the wave on God's bosom of consciousness. You are the ocean itself. But you have become attached to the wave. And as the wave goes along, you become attached to the rising and falling of the wave. But when you break that attachment and realize yourself as the ocean, can the ocean die? Can God's ocean of consciousness pass away? No. It's the wave consciousness that passes away. The separation from the bosom of the ocean as a wave, that passes away when we break the attachment. That's what we have to learn about immortality. And so, this identification with this body as the outer vehicle, and then when you get mixed up in spiritualism and such things, and you really want astral visions and all that, you're attached to that. You have to break that bottle too. And when you're attached to the causal universe which produces all this phenomena, you have to break that too. When you do that, then you realize what you truly are, a divine being, a part of the infinite presence of God's immortality. We must remember the illustration. The wave must return to the bosom of the ocean. You can't get away from it. So why not do it now? Why put it off? Why be in delusion? Why allow this material consciousness to dictate to you? You've got to return. The wave has to return to the bosom of the ocean. So do we. But the most wonderful thing is, when you return to the bosom of the ocean, nothing is lost. These bodies which we have, these shadows, and the things which make up the universe, they melt. But you, as the consciousness of God, are never lost. You cannot be lost. None of us can be lost. That's why Ramakrishna said, all will be saved. All will be saved. Is the wave lost? Yes, the outward form is lost. But where is it? Where is its contents? It is one with the ocean of God. One with the ocean of spirit. So when you break this cosmic dream, then you see all this business melting off, just like your own dream fades away. What's left? God himself. Don't worry any more about those who've gone. If you can somehow attain that by a deep longing for God and to know, then you will never fear and never think that you're going to lose those whom you realize as the children of God. They cannot be lost. Remember Master's words, the wave must return to the ocean. The form is lost, but not the contents of the wave, which is God himself, when we liken it to his ocean of consciousness. Consciousness is immortal. You have to break that idea that there's a break in the continuity of your consciousness and realize there is no break. At night when you sleep, you lose the continuity. But aren't you fully alive somewhere in underneath there? You have to make that dynamic to your consciousness so that when you sleep, you never lose your awareness of God's presence. And you can even prove conscious death while here living in this body. You can consciously die. Heart will stop, slow down and stop. Breath will slow down. Internal functions will stop. You will prove that you can be conscious through death. But you've got to do it here in this existence to be able to do it and know it afterwards. You have to prove it, that's all. Prove it how? By following one who had that realization, our Master himself. Follow the things he has left, that's all. Follow the techniques, and knowing it, you will fear death no more. It doesn't exist. It's as simple as that. It's as difficult as that. But we can do it because we're made in the image of God. That's why we pray, I am not this body. Over and over again, you say, I wonder if you shouldn't change his prayer. No. I'll change it. We'll all change it when we all realize it. That we are not this big. We are the infinite presence of God's consciousness within, which is immortal and does not change. We have been taken up with things that change. We've been attached to things that change. Now let us break that attachment and be one with the infinite, changeless cause of things, which is God's consciousness itself. And so, remember the dream consciousness. The dream consciousness is your best illustration. Just as you dream, don't you have all characters of light and shadow in your dream? When you wake, where are they? Your consciousness is intact. That's the immortal part of yourself. You have to be able to realize that. So God is dreaming just like you dream, like I dream. And this thing which seems so solid, this universe upon universe with all its aspects, is the light and shadow of God's light. As in our own dream, we focus those lights and shadows as forms and conditions and taste and smell. It's all your dream, isn't it? Don't you smell and taste in your dream and fear and know all sorts of things? Nothing but light and shadow of what? Your own consciousness, which is immortal. And so God's consciousness, which is yours, has projected this dream. And when we break that dream, when we wake up from it, from this dream, Lord, will you wake me? When you wake up from it, just as your dream passes away, so does this business, which seems so real, pass away. Psychologically, we can prove that. Keep on with the meditations. Read the Master's poem, Samadhi, every day. That helped me very much. Gone forever the fitful flickerings of mortal memory. Think of it. Doesn't your dream break the same way? All those memories slip away? Gone forever the fitful flickerings of mortal memory. Spotless is my mental sky. No light and shadows of this business. Beneath, in front, and high above eternity and I, one united ray, a little bubble of ego, which seems so far remote from God, has become the sea of bliss itself. Meditate regularly, do your techniques, read that poem every day. It'll help you very much. And so in God, there is neither life nor death. The life and death is on this side, in this worldly consciousness. In God, there's no life or death. Is there any life or death in the ocean? The life and death is in the wave action. When it melts into the ocean, it is. So it is with us. We must, Master told me, he says, never forget the illustration of the wave in the ocean and your dream. Your dream consciousness, if you do not forget it, you can understand little by little, because we're made in the image of God. Remember those illustrations. And so, when the veils of duality are lifted, you there, I'm here, and all sorts of duality. Los Angeles, New York, Europe, space business, and all that. Duality. When the veils of duality are lifted, then the realization of the unity of God's consciousness comes in. One consciousness, an energy of God, from which all things have become. Don't you have your consciousness now? Don't you feel conscious? Sure, you're aware. That's God. Where did awareness come? From nothing? That's the presence of God. Realize these simple truths. As I read a reference from Master's writing. He that knows himself as the omnipresent Spirit is subject no longer to the rigidities of a body in time and space. How wonderful that'll be. It is possible. Their imprisoning rings pass not, that means limitations, of the three bottles, remember, have yielded to the solvent, I am he, blessed Spirit, I am he, as Lord Shankara said. And when there is duality because of ignorance, one sees all things as distinct from the self. But there'll come a time when you won't see the flowers alone, you'll see God as the flowers. Lord Shankara, the great monist, has written, when everything is known as the self or God, not even an atom is seen as another than the self. When you break the dream, that is possible. Isn't it possible in your own dream when you wake up from it? Where are all those machinations that went on? This and that and that and this and a million things. When you wake the dream, where are they? Let us wake up from this dream of God. That's what our Master says to do. Gone forever the fitful flickerings of mortal memory. That's just what happens. You have trouble with your mind, getting rid of all your troubles? Break the dream. There'll be no mind there to worry you. It is difficult, but it can be done. So what is everybody seeking? Everybody is seeking, we all know, God. Or put in terms which we can understand a little better, they are seeking infinite awareness. You feel separated from that infinite awareness of God. We want to do away with that, breaking continuity. Everybody wants God. And what is God? Ever conscious, ever blissful, eternal existence. Can anything be lost in the presence of God? No. Instead of a blankness, so to speak, as sometimes we have felt, we feel this thing going away from us. Where am I going? What's going to happen to me? Nothing's going to happen to you, except you'll be infinite in the infinite awareness of God, unending. And you cannot exhaust it. If we had a utopia here right on earth, we'd get sick of it. Sometimes, you know, if you take too long a vacation, you want to begin to work again, don't you? You get sick of it. But in God's infinite awareness, there's no getting sick of it. You cannot exhaust it. It is the fullness of fulfillment to the degree of eternity. Such is God. That's what we want. That's what everybody is looking for, and that's what we must have. And if you can realize in your meditations that you feel that joy of God, and remember the Master's words, God consciousness and bliss consciousness are the same. If you can realize that, feel the bliss of God's presence, and then, if you can merge in it, then you are divine. Then you have solved the problem. Even if you have to live in this life and return again, never mind. If you once get it, it can never be taken away from you. Even though through your karma you have to pay a little bit. If you know your karma is the dream of God, who cares? Long as you know you are one with the infinite, and there's no difference between you. These are wonderful things to remember. These are the things that we all want, is freedom from pain and trouble. In other words, we want to know we are the bliss and joy of God. As that increases within you, know you are nearing His presence. Know you are merging, I should say. The very fact that you feel the bliss shows that you are in God. But when you merge in it, then you realize there's no difference. There's only one thing, God and God alone. I used to wonder why the saints all spoke of God alone. That's why. Because they found out there's only one eternal substance in the universe. One consciousness and energy, and that's God alone. And in that, instead of there being nothingness, so to speak, nirvana used to be thought to be nothingness, there's fullness, fullness eternal. Everybody wants that. And what is the way to do it? Meditation is the way. Meditation is the way to break this cosmic dream. There's no other way. Meditation means concentration on God, not concentration on God's phenomena, not concentration on the products of the astral visions and all that business. That won't satisfy you. There's only one thing that'll satisfy you and satisfy me. That's God himself, and to realize that you are that awareness and consciousness. That's what we are. That's the truth. You cannot alter it. You cannot find it in spiritualism and such things. Those are phenomena of God. What you want is God himself. Nothing else will we be satisfied with, and don't settle for anything else. When things come to you and your mind says, oh, isn't this wonderful, you saw a vision of light the other day, say, listen, I will not settle for that. I want God and God alone. That's the way to win. If you want those things, you'll get them. But doesn't it say in the Bhagavad Gita, those who want the lesser lights, go to the lesser lights? Let's not settle for that. We'll never be satisfied. Remember the Master's words, the wave must return to the bosom of the ocean. Each one of us must return. We may go way around and follow a path that takes us into the astral realm with all its phenomena, but the wave must return to the ocean. Let us realize that, and right from this moment on begin to return that returning back to God. These are wonderful things, and they give us great solace. And so, the more we meditate, the more we can begin to transcend the changing thoughts and the, what do you call those things, psychoses and frustrations. We've had enough of those. We want God now, where there is freedom from all that business of this outward creation. We've had enough of the dream. And remember Master's words, God is crying for us more than we're crying for him. Think of it. And so we are justified in searching him out and making him the first and greatest engagement in our lives. Let us not forget it. And so our own consciousness is God himself, but you must learn to preserve the continuity of that and not lose it in these different states of consciousness. By different meditations, you can prove you can live, as I spoke, without breath. You can prove that you can be conscious in the state of sleep. And you can prove that you can be conscious in the state of death, right here living, by the techniques which our Master has left for us. It is nothing mysterious. It's the greatest scientific thing there is, the practice of the science of yoga. We can learn to know these states of sleep and death. That's what we have to do. How? By meditation. I remember one time I was meditating deeply. I just tell you this just to show you that it can be done. Nothing to my credit that it was done. I was meditating deeply years ago when Master first came, and I was sitting there and I felt the perfect freedom and the feeling of God's presence as bliss, and I felt my body, and it was ice cold, covered with a cold perspiration. I was perfectly aware. I felt here, and it was hot right in the top of my head. What had happened? By the practice of the techniques of yoga, Kriya Yoga especially, the energy in my body and consciousness had retired to the spine, and it had started upward toward union with the infinite presence of God, and where the two forces came together, it was hot right there. But I was perfectly aware. I surely wasn't dead. The body was dead, all right, but I was fully aware and awake. Then the mind somehow came down a little and says, "You don't think you better stop?" I said, "No." So I kept on. And looking through the spiritual eye, I saw these great clouds of white, ocean of white clouds. And I asked the Master, I said, "What was that?" Next day he says, "You saw the shores of cosmic consciousness." Now, how did I do it? By following his techniques. By following yoga. I have proved these things, otherwise I couldn't stand here and tell you. I wouldn't do it. I don't like to be fooled, and I don't like to fool anyone. These are facts. You can do it. If I did it, you can do it. We're all made in the same common mold, but that mold is God's consciousness plus His energy. And so, just a little more, one more reference, and then we'll be through. From the autobiography, this is what we read. He only is wise, said Larry Marsha, that devotes himself to realizing, not reading only, the ancient revelations. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. Realize that. That's the holy vibration which is in each and every one of us. Don't just read it, realize it, feel it, merge in it, know it. Then he goes on, solve your problems through meditation. Instead of running to Mrs. So-and-so and Mrs. So-and-so with all your trouble, get inside where the presence of God is. And He so easily solves things. Exchange unprofitable religious speculations for actual God contact. Clear your mind of dogmatic theological debris. Let in the fresh healing waters of direct perception, that is of God. Attune yourself to the active inner guidance. The divine voice has the answer to every dilemma of life. Think of it. Everything, every mess you can get into, I can get into. And I get into lots of them. Used to get into more. Everyone can be solved by meditation, attaining the presence of God. And finally, Larry Marsha says, divine union is possible through self-effort and is not dependent on theological beliefs or on the arbitrary will of a cosmic dictator. God is love, we must remember. Through use of the Kriya Yoga key, persons who cannot bring themselves to believe in the divinity of any man, and I don't blame them sometimes, but will behold at last the full divinity of their own selves. God alone exists. And so in closing, to know life immortal, or to know life hereafter, or to solve the problems of immortality, you have to prove it while living. You have to prove it while living. How can you expect to know it hereafter if you don't know it now? That's foolish. Foolishness. Master has said this, and I want to quote his words that you not forget. He says, those who try by devotional yogic methods to understand and perceive the phenomena of sleep and death, and you can do it by following the techniques he has left, those who do that during their conscious physical existence, it is they who can retain their consciousness after death. Don't think that you're going to slide along, do nothing, and then know the whole thing after you're through with this vehicle. No, you have to do it now. Solve this problem of immortality by knowing your immortal nature right now while living. And from our scriptures we have the same admonition. Revelation, the 2nd chapter, the 10th verse. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. That means, be thou faithful by being able to be conscious through the phenomena of death. You will receive a crown of life right now, not later. So these are wonderful things, and I'll close by reading the last part of Master's poem Samadhi, in which he says, from joy I came, for joy I live, in sacred joy I melt. Ocean of mind, I drink all creation's waves. The four veils of solid, liquid, vapor, light, lift aright. Myself and everything enters the great myself. Gone forever fitful flickering shadows of mortal memory. Spotless is my mental sky below, ahead and high above. Eternity and I, one united ray, the tiny bubble of laughter I am become the sea of mirth itself.